A war veteran strolls through a quiet suburban street, his dog padding contentedly beside him. The sun is warm, the trees sway gently, and a breeze carries the scent of distant barbecue. Everything is peaceful until a sudden crack shatters the air. A car backfires. In an instant, his body reacts. His chest tightens, his pulse explodes. Sweat beads on his brow. He's no longer in the neighborhood. His brain has transported him. He's crouched in sand, the thunder of mortars overhead, adrenaline flooding his veins. There's no conscious decision, no rational filter. His body is there, his mind is there, the war is there, and yet the war is also long over. Why does this happen? Why can a fear from childhood, or the voice of someone long gone, still erupt in us, fully formed, as if no time has passed at all? Why does the smell of a certain cologne bring tears before we know why? Or a song from long ago conjure a lost person so vividly that we can almost touch them? If the past is really over, why does the brain act like it's still happening? This isn't just poetic pondering. Neuroscience has stumbled into a paradox. When you recall a powerful memory, especially one tied to trauma, love, fear, or grief, the same brain regions light up as when the original event occurred. In fMRI scans, the act of remembering activates nearly the same patterns as direct experience. Your brain doesn't just replay the past, it relives it. To the brain, remembering is doing, which raises a quietly profound question. Does the past ever truly end? Perhaps memory isn't a file we open. Perhaps it's a place we return to. And if that's true, then maybe time, at least in the emotional and biological sense, isn't linear. Not in the way we want it to be. Maybe your body keeps a kind of time that your conscious mind can't read. A time made of sensation, sound, smell. A loop, not a line. So what does that mean? For healing, for trauma, for love, for identity. Maybe we aren't haunted by the past at all. Maybe we are the past, living forward. To understand why the past can feel so painfully present, we have to go deep into the architecture of the brain itself. Buried in the medial temporal lobe, like ancient scrolls wrapped in neurons, lie two key structures, the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus is often described as the brain's librarian, tasked with organizing memory, mapping context, and orienting events in space and time. But this librarian doesn't work with calendars or clocks. It works with relationships between moments, places, people, emotions. It encodes experience not as a linear timeline, but as a network of meaning and sensation. Close by, the amygdala operates like an alarm system. It's always on watch, scanning every experience for emotional intensity, especially fear, danger, and pain. It's not interested in what year it is. It wants to know, is this a threat? And if so, it stamps the experience with urgency, embedding it deeper into the nervous system. This pairing, hippocampus and amygdala, forms the biological heart of memory. But their language isn't chronological, it's visceral. Evolution didn't design these structures to help us reminisce. It designed them to help us survive. This might be why early psychologists, like Pierre Janet and Sigmund Freud, were struck by something strange in their patients. Many people suffering from trauma didn't just remember what had happened to them. They relived it, in dreams, in waking panic, in physical symptoms that seemed to have no source. A voice tone, a slammed door, even a scent could send them spiraling, not metaphorically but viscerally. Janet called these vehement emotions, fragments of experience that had split off from normal memory and now existed as raw, uncontrollable flashback. Freud saw something similar, patients stuck in repetition, as if their minds were trying to make sense of something too terrible to digest. Back then, this was seen as psychological malfunction, something irrational or repressed. But modern neuroscience tells a different story. It's not irrational, it's biological. When trauma occurs, especially early in life, it can disrupt how the hippocampus encodes time and sequence. The amygdala, meanwhile, becomes hyperactive, branding the emotional intensity into the nervous system. These memories are not filed away like old paperwork. They remain live, accessible, reactive. And this isn't just about trauma survivors. It's all of us. A smell from a childhood kitchen, a melody from a first heartbreak, a phrase your father used to say. Suddenly, you're there, not remembering but inhabiting the moment. Your heart rate changes, your posture shifts, a lump forms in your throat. It doesn't matter that decades have passed. The emotional signature hasn't faded. The past lives just beneath the surface, waiting for a cue. Because the brain doesn't store memory as a neat chronological list, it stores it as patterns of sensation, of emotion, of bodily state. That's why a specific cologne doesn't just remind you of someone. It feels like them. Why a hospital beep can send someone spiraling into grief. Why the sound of a belt, a slamming door, a mother's sigh can transport you to a childhood bedroom, breath held, stomach tight. This has massive implications. Because when we misunderstand memory, we misunderstand each other. We say things like, just move on, or that was years ago, or why are you still upset? As if time on a calendar erases emotional circuitry. But biology doesn't work that way. Memory, especially emotional memory, is etched into the body. It isn't just a thought, it's a lived state. And when we do understand this, truly, deeply, we unlock something extraordinary. We gain compassion for ourselves and others. We stop seeing emotional responses as overreactions and start seeing them as echoes of survival. We open the door to better therapy, where healing isn't just about talking it out, but about retraining the nervous system. We stop asking, why can't you forget? And start asking, what does your body still remember? And how can we help it feel safe now? For decades, memory was seen as passive, a record, a photograph, a dusty journal on a mental shelf. But modern neuroscience shattered that illusion. In a groundbreaking study at Harvard, researchers placed volunteers in an fMRI scanner and asked them to vividly recall a painful memory, not just to name it, but to feel it, to remember with their bodies, their breath, their bones. What they saw stunned them. The participants' brains lit up in the same regions activated during the original painful experience. The anterior cingulate cortex, linked to emotional pain, glowed. The insula, which tracks internal body states like nausea or heartbeat, pulsed with activity. The pain was not imagined, it was re-experienced. Their bodies, in measurable, physiological terms, believed it was happening again. This finding sparked a dilemma both scientific and deeply human. If memory and experience are neurologically indistinguishable, then how do we heal? How do we live fully in the present if our brains are wired to relive the past, without our permission, without warning? It's no longer enough to say, it's over now, because the body doesn't know that. The neurons don't know that. The story has ended, but the soundtrack plays on. This is not just theoretical, it's personal. Consider Anna, a woman in her 30s who began therapy after years of panic attacks and sleep paralysis. On the surface, her life was stable, a job, a partner, a home, but her body told a different story. At night, her heart would pound as if she were being chased. Loud noises made her freeze. The smell of alcohol, even on a stranger's breath, left her dissociating, lost in thought she couldn't name. She had no conscious memory of abuse. But therapy, gentle and consistent, revealed fragments, moments from childhood, unclear but intense, where boundaries had been crossed, trust shattered. As Anna began to remember, her panic grew worse. Not because she was regressing, but because neurologically she was reliving. Her therapist explained the science to her. Your brain isn't broken. It's trying to protect you. It thinks you're still in danger. That changed everything. With this insight, Anna didn't feel crazy. She felt seen. Together they worked with techniques that didn't just talk about the past, but calmed the nervous system in real time. Grounding, EMDR, somatic experiencing. Slowly, her brain learned the truth. I am not there anymore. But the process wasn't quick, and for many, it's never easy. Because the real challenge of healing isn't forgetting, it's feeling safe enough to stay in the present, even when the past knocks at the door. This is the invisible cost of trauma, not just the pain of what happened, but the confusion of never quite knowing what moment you're in, the betrayal of your own senses, the unreliability of peace. But in this crisis lies a kind of hope, because if memory can hurt us through reactivation, then healing might come through repatterning. The brain is plastic. Circuits can change. What fires together can wire differently. And that means the future, unlike the past, is still unwritten. The past, it turns out, doesn't just echo, it ripples. And those ripples can shape lives long after the original stone was thrown. Trauma, especially when unprocessed, has a way of hiding in the nervous system, surfacing in unexpected ways. A veteran avoids crowds without knowing why. A woman startles at raised voices, even though no one is yelling at her. A man shuts down emotionally, never realizing he's reenacting the silence of his childhood home. The body, primed for danger, shifts into survival mode, not because of present threats, but because of ancient signals that never got turned off. The brain, wired to protect, mistakes shadows for predators. It is not a flaw, it is a feature, but one that has outlived its moment. Childhood trauma is especially insidious. The younger the brain, the less language it has. A child who feels abandoned, neglected, or unsafe doesn't record a detailed narrative. They absorb a state. The absence of comfort becomes a body posture. The fear of rejection becomes a permanent vigilance. And those early patterns become the templates for adult behavior. You flinch when someone pulls away, because once that meant danger. You chase affection or push it away, because once love was conditional. And all of it happens beneath the surface, before words, before awareness. You think you're overreacting, but your body is reacting exactly as it was trained to. This is why traditional talk therapy, while valuable, often falls short. Telling the story isn't always enough, because the trauma didn't happen in words. It happened in sensation, in heartbeat, in breath. Healing, then, must go deeper than explanation. It must reach the nervous system itself. Modalities like somatic experiencing, EMDR, breathwork, and neurofeedback offer a different doorway, not just recounting what happened, but retraining the body to feel safe again, to teach the amygdala a new truth. The danger has passed, and yet memory is not always pain. Joy travels the same pathways. A whiff of your grandmother's perfume, the jingle of an old cartoon theme, the crackle of leaves underfoot. These moments can flood the system with warmth, laughter, even awe. But they too carry complexity. Joyful memories often arrive hand in hand with grief, because to remember joy is to feel its absence. The smell that once meant safety now signals loss. The memory that warms the heart can also break it. The past gives and takes in equal measure. Then comes a deeper twist. What if some memories aren't even real? Studies show that the brain can encode imagined or suggested events so vividly that they feel indistinguishable from actual experience. A childhood story told enough times becomes a lived truth. A dream, remembered vividly, becomes a conviction. In experiments, participants were led to believe they had committed crimes, gotten lost, even been attacked, all through repeated suggestion. The emotional intensity embedded these stories in the same way real ones are stored, and the brain reacted accordingly, which raises a profound question. If the brain responds to fiction as it does to fact, what, in the emotional realm, is real? The stakes are not small. Misdiagnosed trauma can lead to ineffective treatment or misdirected blame. In courtrooms, memory is treated like evidence. But if that memory is subject to distortion, what happens to justice? In families and relationships, triggers, those sudden flares of panic or rage, are often seen as irrational. But if they are echoes of old wounds, then they are not random at all. They are coded messages, written in the language of the past. On a larger scale, memory isn't just personal, it's cultural. Entire societies carry trauma through generations. Nations shaped by colonization, war, slavery, genocide. These histories don't just reside in textbooks. They live in bodies, in parenting styles, in community fears, in collective silence. Children inherit not only DNA, but emotional tone. A community shaped by displacement may teach vigilance as virtue. A family marked by poverty may transmit scarcity as instinct. These inherited memories shape not only individual identity, but group behavior, long after the events themselves have faded from view. This is the paradox of memory. It is both a map and a maze. It guides us, shelters us, wounds us, and, if we let it, teaches us how to heal. But only if we understand its power. Only if we stop asking, why can't they just move on? And start asking, what story is their body still trying to tell? Here is where everything turns, quietly but irrevocably. The most profound discovery in modern neuroscience isn't just that the brain relives the past. It's that the brain doesn't actually store time at all. There is no timestamp on a memory, no date-stamped folder in the mind's archive. What the brain stores is state, how your body felt, how your breath moved, what your heart did, whether you were safe or afraid, connected or alone. That's what gets encoded. Not the clock, not the calendar, just the conditions of experience. And that changes everything. Because here's the twist. If, in the present, your nervous system enters a state that resembles one from the past, your brain makes a snap decision without asking for permission. It says, we've been here before, and it activates the pathways, emotions, and even biochemistry associated with that earlier moment. You feel rage that doesn't match the situation, or a deep, aching sadness you can't explain, or a sudden instinct to run when there's no real threat. This isn't dysfunction, this is recognition. Your body is pattern matching. It's protecting you the only way it knows how. This realization reframes the very nature of memory. We tend to think of memories as static snapshots, things we can call up at will, unchanged from when they were first made. But neuroscience reveals something stranger and far more powerful. Memory is reconstructed, not retrieved. Every time we remember something, especially something emotional, we're not pulling it out of storage. We're reassembling it in the present, and in doing so, we can change it. This process is called memory reconsolidation. It means the past is not a fossil. It is a living thing. Emotional memories, especially traumatic ones, are malleable, not easily, but profoundly. Under the right conditions, safety, awareness, therapeutic support, a memory can be recalled, felt, and then rewired. The emotional charge can be reduced. The meaning can shift. A story that once screamed, "I'm not safe," can soften into, "I survived." And when that shift happens, the body responds, the heart slows, the breath deepens, the pattern changes, and with it, the future does too. This is the hidden genius of the brain. It doesn't reactivate the past to punish you. It pulls forward what it thinks you need to survive, to stay alert, to avoid danger. Even when it's wrong, its motive is protection. The trembling hands, the short breath, the shutting down, these are not signs of weakness. They're signs of a system that once learned to survive. And here lies the greatest shock of all. The past isn't gone. It's alive, breathing with us in every moment. But it's not fixed. It can be rewritten, not erased, but re-understood. That means healing isn't about forgetting. It's about teaching the body that it's safe now. It's about changing the pattern so the brain can stop looping the old story. Because the moment the pattern breaks, the future opens and the past finally lets go. We now understand something both humbling and liberating. Trauma doesn't live in the past. It lives in the present state of the body. It's not stored like a film reel in the mind, waiting to be played back in orderly sequence. Instead, it lingers in muscle tension, heart rate, breath patterns, gut reactions, and posture. The memory of trauma is not just a story, it's a reflex, a twitch, a tightness in the chest, a clenching of the jaw, a sudden vigilance in the eyes. These are the traces it leaves behind. And this is why healing can't come from talk alone, because trauma was never just cognitive, it was somatic. To truly change it, we have to involve the body. Modern therapies have begun to reflect this truth. Somatic therapy works directly with physical sensation, helping people track their inner experience, moment by moment, until old patterns begin to release. EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, uses bilateral stimulation to interrupt the brain's fixation on trauma loops, allowing emotional memories to be revisited without becoming overwhelming. Neurofeedback uses real-time brainwave data to teach the brain how to return to calm, self-regulated states. Breathwork activates the parasympathetic nervous system, our built-in rest and repair mode, often unlocking deep emotional release. Vagus nerve stimulation, whether through gentle sound, touch, or breath, speaks directly to the body's core safety system, signaling you are safe now. These approaches are all different ways of saying the same thing to the nervous system. This is now, not then. And when the body receives that message, gently, repeatedly, consistently, it begins to believe it. That's the hopeful shift. We no longer have to be ruled by invisible patterns formed in moments of fear or pain. We can retrain the nervous system. We can teach the brain that the present is not a battlefield, that the danger is gone, that the past is no longer happening. And when the brain learns this, it begins to change how memories feel. Not the facts of the memory, but its emotional meaning. A painful moment may always remain painful, but it no longer has to trigger collapse, panic, or numbness. It no longer has to control your life. This is the quiet revolution of neuroscience, discovering that the past only owns us when we react from it unconsciously, when we don't know why we flinch, why we push people away, why we sabotage what we want. But when we bring these patterns into awareness, not just intellectually but bodily, we unlock change. The brain, ever plastic, begins to rewire. New neural circuits form, old ones weaken. What once felt like fate begins to feel like choice. This doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, gentle, often non-linear, but it's real. The same brain that encoded the pain has the capacity to release it. The same nervous system that once learned fear can learn peace. The same body that braced for danger can exhale into safety. And so, the past softens, not because it's forgotten, but because it's no longer running the show. You remember, but you don't relive. You carry the story, but it no longer carries you. That is healing, not erasure, but transformation. Not forgetting, but freedom. An old woman sits quietly on a weathered bench by the sea. The wind tugs gently at her scarf, and the smell of salt lingers in the air like a memory. A wave crashes, sharp, sudden, and for a moment, her body flinches. A flash of tension grips her shoulders. Her breath catches. For an instant, she's young again, 10 years old. Her father's voice rising over the roar of the surf, a thunderclap of rage echoing down the beach. Her feet in wet sand, her small hands trembling. But then, she exhales, slowly, consciously. The tension loosens. She closes her eyes. She lets the sound pass through her instead of into her. When she opens them again, she sees a child, no more than 6, splashing in the waves, shrieking with delight. A mother nearby laughs and reaches for the child's hand. The old woman smiles. Her chest rises and falls. Calm now, she remembers, but she is not there. This, perhaps, is what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not erasing, not pretending the past was gentle when it wasn't, but remembering, without becoming, the memory, feeling the echo and choosing not to follow it, letting the wave crash and watching it dissolve. Because the truth is, your brain doesn't know the difference between past and present, not always. It's built to respond to patterns, not calendars. It keeps you safe by recalling what once hurt you. It means well. It always means well. But the body it guards is no longer the same. The danger has passed. The story has shifted. The world has changed. And while the brain can't always tell time, you can. You with your breath. You with your awareness. You with the gentle power to say, that was then, this is now. Maybe peace doesn't come from forgetting what happened. Maybe it comes from knowing, deep in your bones, that you are no longer there, that the memory can visit, but it does not command. That the waves can roar, but they cannot pull you under. The past may live in your body, but so can safety, so can joy, so can now.